Hello, it's just Kaim, and I'm doing an After Effects tutorial on what we learned during the lesson. So, let's do this. Here we are. I have my standard After Effects background on. Now through this we'll be going through the current. Here we are. So, in the lesson I typed up what we did. You know, we gotta learn. We're ending up gonna do some kinetic text and whatnot, and you could type that on the internet by yourself if you want to find out more about that. Now, file types that can import PNG, TIFF, JPEG. It can pretty much import every, you know, proper format of file. If there's a file and it's legible for your computer to read, After Effects can pretty much read it. So, I mean, don't be dragging stuff like application.exe files into After Effects, because to be honest, they'll try and run it with After Effects and probably kill something on your computer. Those you can't import. However, anything to do with media, you can, safe bet to say, you could probably import it to After Effects. Different ones have different, you know, do different things. So, about the plugin support for Cinema 4D, I have Cinema 4D on it. I don't have the plugin for it though, so I'm not going to show any of that, unfortunately. Now my OneDrive seems to have messed up. Sweet. Anyhow, so this is all we need. So I'm going to be going through these current project standard panels, making a new project, changing the resolution. You know, I'm going to explain a bit on how I use my resolution, my FPS, and all that jazz. Panel tools, all your different little buttons and stuff. Layer structure, how I would structure a layer. Layer coloring, how you would put the colors on the boxes on the left, which indicate when you select them all, you can see which is which. The effects panel, and how you add effects, how the timeline works, and keyframing. So, first, let's make a new project. When you start After Effects, you'll have this window pop up. You might have that little dialog box if you're on Creative Cloud. I switched it off because I flicked it off button, click close. Now basically the dialog box just gives you a recent you know, saves. So I'm gonna go through every time you open up After Effects you start a new project. Regardless of if you want to start a new project, you know, you'll have new project up there. If however you double click on like a saved file, so if I was to go into my document and double click on any of these, it would open it in After Effects. Now I'm starting a new one, so I'm not going to bother doing any of these. So, after you've started After Effects, you're going to want a composition. You know, can't do anything, can't add any files into nothing, you know, like there's no composition, there's nothing to do. So, composition, new composition. Now, mine's set to my desktop's standard resolution. Now I have a 16 by 10 aspect ratio instead of 16 by 9, which means that basically I've got an extra 120 pixels upwards on my screen. It's the only difference pretty much. Now normally I don't bother changing it. This has never had any real relevance to me with what I do. However, one thing I learned is now, you know, you gotta be careful because the American TV and British TV and other clients have different frame rates. I personally never knew that. I mean, look at this, 23.976. That is something for something that does that frame rate. So, now I normally just keep it at default, 29.97. If I'm doing a short render or some sort of quick graphic, I'll switch to 24 because it's, you know, saves time. I'm doing it for myself and on a YouTube channel. I'm not going to render super high quality for it. If I want a super high quality, I may go up to 50, maybe even 60 if depending on, you know, it doesn't really make any difference from 30 to 60, it's very small. Takes 5 times longer to render, however, and all that stuff. Now normally, I would only recommend doing this kind of aspect ratio when you're doing simple things on screen, or you're learning to use it. If you're doing extremely complex renders, that would be for your final piece, yeah? You wouldn't ever use that resolution for a small banner, for example. It would take you ages and ages and ages to render, and no one has that kind of time. Take tons of space, tons of times, and your computer will probably explode. So there we are. Now, this is different to what you have in college. I have transparency on my background, and I've gotten rid of my preview. Okay, so can edit your settings at any time. I go back in here. It's not. Okay, ignore that. You can set your background color. Red this little tool, nifty tool. Yeah, normally it's set to black. I was doing some stuff the other day with my just quick render. I'm going to keep it transparent. I like this background. It reminds me of Illustrator, surprisingly enough, and all that stuff. So here you are. I can switch off here now. That would be that button down there, by the way, if you want to switch off transparency. Now, normally, even with this black on, but the black is just the background for the composition. Any composition is fully transparent, depending on what you render it as. If it isn't fully transparent, then it will render out as white. Because the only thing After Effects will render is what's in this scene. Now, as you can see, completely empty. So we're going to do what we do. Let's add a text layer in. Now, first thing I'm going to do is scaling. And a quick tip. When using the text tool, I really get frustrated at this. The hotkey for your standard movement and selection arm, which is the this select, is V. If you're, however, in a text box and you start spamming hotkeys to get out of the text box, unfortunately you'll just be making a mess in your text box and spamming V's everywhere. So that's just a thing to look out for. Don't start spamming the letter V in chat while you're trying to access your hotkeys. I've done that many times. Now, scaling in After Effects is fairly simple. You select the selection tool. You can either select it on screen, or you can select it down here. And then you'll see these little bars appear. These little points you can drag. Standard Word. If you've ever used Word before, which I'm fairly certain everyone in the world nowadays who's in a high-end country, sounds a bit arrogant, I don't care, would have used these tools. Now, as you can see, the anchor point is down in the bottom left. I'm not going to bother going through how you change it. It's through the options. You can search it in 5 minutes on Google. So, scaling an aspect ratio of your image, or your ratio of the image, height to width, changes when you scale it. If you want to keep it the same, standard hotkey, I can pretty much assume it for all software platforms, hold shift or drag in the corners and you will drag it correctly to scale. Yeah, make sure you actually let go of the click before you let go of shift. Interesting fact, if you hold shift, you cannot actually click on these things. So if I am going to hold shift now, it won't let me select it. So, remember, you have to select the point you want to drag before manipulate, as they say, before you hit shift. Start dragging it, I could do some stupid things, flip it upside down, and if for the second I click shift, I'll just scale it, however, with what the correct, aspect ratio of the letters are. Now I'm going to probably confuse you. Aspect ratio is just, height to width, so as I say, it just keeps it centered. Now another one to basically just keep stuff organized is when you're adding in a shape. Now when you add in a shape, a fairly annoying thing can be is, it always starts from where you click, and for example a circle, and drags the circle. And that can be really annoying, because then you have to move the circle around. But there's another way. Holding shift and control together means that you can shift O and control together means that you can scale it but keep it in the same place. Now the only reason it will stop scaling for me is my push to talk key is my middle mouse button, which is move, like pan things around. So holding down my middle mouse button can't transform as well. I'll take my hand off the microphone and I shall explain it and show you what I mean. This is what happens when I click control and shift and drag. It will keep it centered around where I place the object. I'll do it again. I'm going to put it in the screen, and I'm going to put the circle in the screen. I'll show you what happens. You can guess what happens when I click shift. It'll keep the same aspect ratio. When I hit control, it will center it around the point that I selected. There you have it. Yep. Shift was the first button I clicked. Now, wherever the anchor point was, it put the anchor point there. Hit control and shift at the same time. You know, just click control as well as shift. Start dragging, and it centers it exactly where you placed it. Very helpful, you know. Don't want to be messing around, dragging stuff all over the screen. You could screw something up in your After Effects. Now, quick tip for putting images in. Do not place an image into an After Effects composition if you have something selected. What this does is it doesn't create a shape anymore. Not an image, sorry, a shape I mean. It does not create a shape, it creates a mask instead. I shall explain what this is. Now I'm going to select this crazy hedgehog, hit the create shape button, and when I draw something, oh look, it's made a mask over it instead. And it'll come down in your crazy hedgehog, I'll pull up this thing, and I'll say masks, mask 1. Now, later on in After Effects, very, very helpful. One of the most helpful things in the entire thing. I was about to call it a game. I love After Effects that much. Most useful. Well, very, 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 very useful. However, it's annoying. When you think you're putting a shape in, standard shape, a square for like the corner of a screen, same color as something else. You know, just wanted to fill the corner of the screen in, and suddenly, you know, half of your animations disappeared because you've accidentally put it in on a piece of something that's really important. So make sure if you want to put in a picture, so make sure that isn't selected. Go into your tools. Make sure it isn't selected. Let's tell myself, and drag it. Now remember, after you've finished placing the shape using all the nice function keys, you know, Control, Shift, and whatnot, make sure you don't forget to go back and select the selection tool, because you might put a shape up, go into here, go back, click something, oh, there's another shape, and you know what, I don't even have to drag anything, I can click and it'll make a shape. And you'll suddenly have all these things, you know, messing up, you don't know which one's what, and it all goes to hell. Now, it tends to be with the naming stuff that, you know, if you're going to do it for a client, it'll be all well and good, you know, naming everything for exactly what it is. But if I was, for example, at home practicing, and I said, you know, I'm going to have a shape, which is in a big circle, and it's going to be right there, and it's going to be a big circle in this nice, clean presentation where I have a giant circle for no reason. Yeah, you can keep it. I mean, Mr. Brian may disagree, but you can keep it shape layer 1. How many shapes are there on the screen? 1. If it gets more confusing, for example, if you put in like a little logo or something that you've built, and it's another shape that's similar, might want to switch it to, you know, blue circle or black circle or whatever, you know. So I'm going to add in a bunch of different layers and stuff, you know, just to duplicate this layer a few times. Now we've got lots of different layers, and I'm going to scatter them around. Now, as these shape layers are above the Crazy Hedgehog logo layer in the thing, they've gone and covered it up. You can see a tiny bit of the G of the hedgehog trying to run away. So, as he said, very simple to understand. It's a hierarchy system. You know, thing at the top is the boss. There you are. You know, now he sits on top of everything else. Yeah, it's as simple as, same as Photoshop, same as all layers and pretty much everything that uses layers. Yeah, pretty much. I'm not going to change that statement. So, importing documents into your thing. So far, you've seen me create everything in this thing. If you would like to import, for example, go into my folder. I'll show you how I organize myself. I go into here. And I want to import a nice picture of a fox, because foxes are pretty damn badass, I must say so myself. You go into the folder. This is not through anything, I haven't clicked anything in After Effects, I just gone to the folder, and you can do two things. I can do this. By the way, that's not my image, I took it off Google to model something off, so, you know, just saying, if any Google people or whoever owns that image sees this video, don't be mad. and you drag the video from your documents or whatever you want into the After Effects. Now, if you don't like doing it that way, and a more guaranteed way, or you could say, to avoid taking the wrong image from a folder, File, Import. You can even import recent footage that you've been using. You might have made some cool stuff and saved it in your assets folder. You would say, oh look, it's got something else in that. So you can import files. You can import projects. For later on, I'm going to explain. If I was, for example, if I had made a really, slick looking project and I wanted to use, for example, a ball I made in that project, and I wanted to use it in here. Now, instead of going into the After Effects project, loading that project up, and then copying the ball, and then loading your other project up at the same time, paste the ball into that, very, very, very complex and very unnecessary as well. What you could do, provided that the projects aren't super big, then it's easier to export that particular object as a file. What you can do is you can literally just drag or import, for example, like any of these straight into this panel. You can drag an entire save into the panel. And what it'll do, it'll pop the save up as a little dialog box. Folder, sorry. And folders, I end up using more and more, the more complex it is, and basically it's just to store stuff. You suddenly sometimes start getting folders called solids, and other folders like that. Now, After Effects will randomly generate some folders later on when you start to do some, more and more stuff in it. The generated folders are to keep large amounts of stuff. So, for example, if you had a brick, and in After Effects you made the brick, crumble into lots of little chunks and stuff. Someone just smacked the brick with a sledgehammer. It will create a folder called solids. Yeah, it won't say anything else. It'll just say solids, and in there you'll be your brick parts and any other solid that you have. Now, you'll start getting these random folders appear. Now, I just tend to put a big folder that says solids in, stick those solid folders into that, because it keeps them all. After Effects knows where it all is. It's all internal to After Effects, those things are, and keep it. Now, if I was to import that nice fox again, I'll go back and import that fox. I have the fox anyway. The fox is in this project. If I save this project now, it will After Effects will say, okay, where is that fox found? It is found on Kaim's hard drive right there, file, user, After Effects, pics, images, and it will go back to there and look for that. If, for example, I moved that particular file, that image of a fox, if I save this quickly and go back into it, didn't really have to close the entire software down for that, but I did by accident. Okay, so let's get rid of that fox. Let's hide it. After Effects, you'll never find this fox again. Now, let's boot up him After Effects again. After Effects warning. One file is missing since you last saved this project. So it'll be like, okay, where is it? And if I drag this on now, it comes up with that really kind of funny generic, oh my god, it's gone picture. So, very easy to fix. If you've moved it and you know where you've moved it to, you do this. Right click it. There we are. Let's found the picture and put it back in. Now, if you, for example, moved the entire folder of pictures, and you happen to have all those hundreds of pictures in this file, and you moved the entire folder, and then you rebooted up After Effects, and I was like, oh my god, 400 pictures missing. You're like, oh no, what have I done? I've missed an entire TIFF sequence or something. Very easy. Once you find one picture, if there's any other pictures it's looking for in the same folder that you've just found that one out, it will say, oh, suddenly After Effects has checked the entire folder and found 20 other things that are missing. Stick it all back in. There you are. After Effects now has saved the new location. So if I move that, if I save it, move it back, be like, where the hell's your image gone? What the hell are you doing? If I move it up, there we are. See, look, can't use the desktop image. It thinks it's on my desktop. So that's how importing works. Don't want to mess anything up. Might be a long-winded tutorial. I'm sorry if it is. And if you don't want to watch it, then don't watch it. That's it, really. Layering. Okay, we've done a layer structure. You obviously know how that works. Layer coloring. Now, if I Control A. Oh, look at all those. Oh, my word. So many generic blue dots. I don't know what is what anymore, and how the hell am I meant to sort out what should I be dragging to, for example, change shape layer 5? Which one's shape layer 5? To do this, very simple. I don't go with vibrant colors. I don't use this too much myself because I just solo the layer, which you can learn by later. Now, if I do Control A and select everything, there you are. I want shape layer 4. Which one is that? Oh, it's the purple one. Okay, that's not having a derp moment. Remember, don't select everything or try and scale one thing up because you'll screw something up. But in the frame, if you, for example, want to switch on all of the things so that you appear at all times, which you can do, then you want to differentiate what the hell's what. So there's the thingy-jig. Now let's go into the tools you have. You have many tools in After Effects. Tools are glorious. I love tools. They are used for everything. From the smallest tool is the all those tools on the top. Very, very important. Everything that you can possibly click on in this entire After Effects package. Very important. So I'm going to start at the top. Okay, let's do this. I'm not preparing myself for anything, by the way. So we have Selection Tool, Hand Tool, Zoom Tool. And you'll see the assigned hotkeys for this particular software. Selection Tool hotkey, I believe, is the same in every type of software. Some, however, it has 2 selection tools. I don't know what happens if you click V twice in those programs. I haven't tried yet. Zoom Tool, Rotation, Unified Camera, only for... You don't really use that ever, really much, unless you're doing 3D and you want to pan the camera around, orbit the camera, which is only time you use it. Let's take this one back. You have your pan behind, not really use much for me at the point in time. Rectangle tool, very, very useful. You've already been informed on how masks and stuff are created. Pen tool, making paths. You can make animations follow a certain path, or you can assign a bunch of particles to a nice looking path. Very cool. Same pen, you've seen the pen used before. It's the same bloody software package after all. So, same software company after all. Package is different. After Effects, not Photoshop or Illustrator. Well, not the text tool, naturally, because very, very used much for doing like trailers and whatnot. You have your simple brush tool, which you can't change. You get your simple clone stamp, which basically is the same as if you. But no, okay, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, that was gonna sound crazy. Okay, I'm going crazy. That's not what I think he does. Anyhow, you can find out what that does in your own time, because I'll search up after this video. That's as simple as it can be. You can, if you double click something, or there's another way, and basically it'll pop up in a little window here if you want to really focus on a particular object. I've disabled it. But it'll come up in a panel here, and in that panel you can edit it, you can rub something out manually if you want to. I tend to leave this stuff alone. It's quite clunky in After Effects compared to, Illustrator and Photoshop and Paint. After Effects is nice adding effects, very nice for, changing general stuff, moving stuff around, whatnot, very good. Doing art in it, probably not recommended. Definitely not recommended for me. There's a few tools. I mean, you can pull up more tools, but it's a effects program, not really a drawing program. You have your roto brush. Don't use that one. Puppet pin. So if you make a shape, you can change the fill, stroke, width. The stroke is actually the outline, by the way. Width of the outline, all that stuff. Quick finger, you can add things to it. Add rectangle, fill, all this stuff. Don't really use the effects from here too much. You might use change the shape of it, fill it, whatnot, all that stuff. Now, standard workplace. I've got mine set to standard. I love the standard workplace. Everything I can need for it. My effects down here. Get the preview here. Hit this button. Nothing happens because it's nothing to really render. I've got no animations in it. You can change it up if you want to. Animation. Oh yes, bigger bottom slot. You want to animate some more stuff. You can expand all these nice little folders now. Don't have anything animated though, so pretty useful for me now. You get your wigglers, you get your motion sketch and all that jazz over there. Don't need those, so I'm going to stick it back to standard. There we are. So, let's go. Effects and presets. Now, they should already be here. I have, however, had an instance beforehand where my effects and presets was not, in fact, here. Was not, in fact? Yes, that sounds right. Was missing. It got this panel that had character and brushes, but it didn't have effects and presets. To fix that, fix any panel that you don't currently have on screen and you really want that panel for whatever reason, you do this. Go into Window. Select what you want. I want a... nothing out of here, really. Paragraph, maybe. Here we are. And that's it, Well, I've got the paragraph in the bottom right. So, things like that. You can even change... a quick mistake I made when I was pre-recording this beforehand. If you, go into workspace and you're looking for the... I did this earlier on. I was a bit stupid, I was like, I need an effects panel, let's show these guys how to put in an effects panel. I went into workspace and hit effects. It's the exact same as this workspace over here. It just switches its mode. So, yeah. Don't be a spoon, because that's probably not what we want to do. Did his backup. Yep, there we are. So, adding effects. Now, effects and presets over here. Your animation presets as they are. Preset animations. Doing text. Doing this really badass kinetic thing. I've been watching some replay videos, YouTube videos, and very, very awesome. I really do like them. Now, some animations have an in and an out keyframe. As they say, one starts the animation, one stops the animation. Or the animation will do something from point A to point B. Whatever you set it to do. As presets, I'm going to add in a decoder. Now, from wherever you are on the timeline, you add some presets. It'll be preset from wherever that point on the timeline is. So, I've set it for whatever it says, Hit space. Very nice animation, Nothing really that big. Now, if we go into this, so look at the keyframes and what makes the animation. There are a bunch of little hotkeys and stuff you can click. You can click down here and click a particular button, pull up, transform options, opacity options, opacity, or whatever you want to call it. All that jazz. Now, to find out your keyframes, you'll open up the layer and you'll see, oh look, all these little black dots. They must be keyframes. Look, it's running, finishes there, starts there. I can't click them. They're in another layer or folder. In a subfolder, you go into text, animator 1. You'll be using this all the time, I'm assuming. You're going to be doing some animations with your text or something, like animating and whatnot. All that stuff. And keep following it until you can find it. Now, this is all it is. It looks like, what are these different things? These are weird, yeah? The ends 100%, what is that? Don't need to use that. Don't need to use the offset. Unless you want to find out what they do and do them yourself. I know what they do, but I'm just pointless explaining them because they're useless at the moment. And basically, start, so it ends at 100%. If I change it to 50%, it'd go from there to there and be at 50%, but you can ignore that. So, start of the animation, it says from start and to finish. So now that keyframe is obviously set at 100%. That keyframe is obviously set at 0%, so we can delete those two keyframes. keyframes. You know, I don't like these keyframes. Oh look, so it stayed at 100%. That's because the part of the timeline, which is this part up here, that you had selected, had this value at 100%, and you delete the keyframes. Now, keyframing, very important, used all the time. To keyframe something, you click the little clock. And now, you can change this value, as long as you do not move this while you're changing a value. I'll explain that in a minute. So, at 0.00, which you can see over here, nothing happens. Now I'm going to move to 4 seconds. Nothing's changed. However, if I edit any value to do what I've, if I had all of these keyframed and I changed the value, it'd put up a little keyframe. Now, currently, it's, it's like nothing's changed, so there's no point animating anything. If I was to change this to 1%, between here and there, we'll go from 0% to 1%. Very easy, very simple to understand. So, After Effects automatically, links this and this together. Now, if you read my notes, which I made the other day on some very cool stuff during the, made today. If OneNote ever wants to load, let's quickly refresh this. No, it's completely bugged. Now, if we all use OneNote, it teaches us saying OneNote's great software. Go, just checking it's still recording. Is it even recording my voice? Let's check. Testing. Hello. Yes, you can see me. Yeah. I keep everything I can possibly fit into this. I love OneNote. It is the coolest stuff ever. It beats Word and kicks in the ass, basically, is what this does. Now, seminar. Didn't we do anything in there that had nothing worthy of recording? Yeah, lesson 1. So you get all this stuff. And I personally, when they say get their folders out and books out, I say open up OneNote, get your universal folder and book out, and constantly write everything you ever do in that because it's so badass you'll never want to get rid of it. Now, there are 12 different steps to animation which I was going to show you. Now I wrote, let's research technology, sorry. Here they are, 12 principles of animation. Now this was made in 1940. Here's a quick bit of a recap. Now, 12 things, Disney made them, still used them today. Whoever set up those 12 specifications, absolute geniuses. I give all the credit. They are absolute geniuses. So, keyframe 1 to 100. Pause the video, by the way, if you want to go back and read that stuff. You can find me in college, whenever, and you can come and tell me, hey, I want to read that stuff, and I'll give it to you for free, because why the hell not? It's something you can Google yourself. And there we go. So start, end, and you can put another keyframe here and put it back down to 5% or 50%. And it'll say, okay, from this keyframe to this keyframe, 0 to 100, from 100 to 25. It's as simple as it looks. You can say, oh no, I want it to be at 26 seconds. So slowly count down if you want. Delete that. So, once it hits, by the way, the 100% doesn't go back to anything. It said, oh, 0%, 100%, nothing else for us to do. Just continue being 100%, And okay, so that's cool. Okay, this bar that you've probably seen all of these things have in After Effects. Basically says when the animation starts. So basically the keyframes that you have selected and put in are stored at 0 and 4 seconds within your little bar, yeah? So if you change the bar, that 4-second animation will start at wherever the beginning of this bar is. And I'll go there, and go there, put that there. And You know, you use it if you don't want something to show in the first 50 seconds and you want to, you know, lead into it with a bit of an introduction or something and then have it appear later. You could do it like this. Easiest way personally is to change this, you know, have fade in, or you can like switch some of the settings like the opacity or don't know how to say that word, opacity or whatever the hell it is. I remember, I used to be able to say that, you know, I'm getting less intelligent somehow. Anyhow, and you can, you know, keyframe anything in the thing by clicking this button. You know, I want that from here to go from, you know, there. You know, it'd go in, it'd fade in, it'd go. Wouldn't fade in, be invisible. You know, fade in. You know, nice little fade in. So yeah, whatever. All of the little buttons, keyframe, and just so simple. Switch keyframe off. Yeah, stick it back to its old settings. All good. By the way, you can in fact drag these off to the left of the timeline, which is, you know, would screw something up eventually. So the effects. Now, you've seen me change the effects from down here. Normally, not what you do when you change an effects. If I had an effect, really complex effect, or something else, you would not definitely go down into here and find it. Well, some you may, but yeah, situational. Most of the time, I wanted to, you know, give a really cool glow effect. It's like, yeah, I want a glow effect. Search in here, glow. Just put glow. Drag it onto the shape if you want, or drag it into this box, which you have selected. Yeah. Some clients, I do believe this box will not, the effects box for this will not show until you've added an effect to it. You can add an effect to it, dragging it into here. You know, as long as you highlight the image in some way, fairly logical, easy to use, you know. The effects panel up here, as you can see, you have effects, surprisingly enough, and you have all the variables for the effects. You know, you can change glow radius if you want to change that. Yeah, so look like a ghost hedgehog logo. Dun dun dun. No, that looks pretty cool. I like that. Gives the green a bit more like crispness to the edges. So I'll say all technical and stuff. I'll show you my logo after this. I've finished the tutorial. Nearly finished. I don't believe we have much to do. Timeline usage. Okay, I'm going to explain timeline. We haven't been through all of the buttons. In project, you have interpret footage. Don't really use that much. Create a new folder. If you had 20 images in here that you've extracted from your assets folder, you can remake a folder. You know, use the button, right click, new folder if you want. Pretty much everything. If you can have an option to it on the hotbar, you could right click and do the same bloody thing. Yeah, if something confuses you like that. Create a new composition can also be done from down here. You know, just brings up the same dialog box, slightly quicker. You want to delete something from here, click it, the trash can. Down here, it's slightly more complex, doesn't have the same. Same, these buttons toggle with the F key. Don't use them much until later. And the F key basically switches from this to this. The F4 key is what I mean. Blend mode, you'll probably get into this. It's kind of complex. Screen, for example, like adds it onto something behind it or in front of it, whatever, you know, the jazz. That's what it is. Timeline. Now, in After Effects, which is this is going to be about, timeline is cool. Timeline says, you know, all of this happens at this point, and here's a nice long timeline. You can see all your different animations, 50 of them stretched out. I'm going to go to a new project, and I'm going to open this one. Now, Mr. Brian did say keep it organized. Now, my folders and saves are organized. I mean, the layout in the project bar, very less organized. The names, not organized at all. I nearly did a mistake. Now, remember, if you want to open a project, do not drag it into here. You will practically just load it into here and make this project whatever this size is plus that size. So you always go for it this way. as you can see in this project, I have many different things laid out differently. I even have this bar on fully. Now let's explain. This bar here, this is what will happen if you hit space. What is the software will pre-render to? Yeah, hit space. It will render from the start to the end of this, and it will loop and it will play that. And once it's finished rendering, you know, it will finish playing it. But let's quickly wait for this to finish. I'm not doing any editing on this. You may say, a visual effects student can't be asked to edit a video. No, quite frankly, can't be asked to edit this video. Very nice video. I think it's clear, concise. I'm not going to skip 20 seconds of your life while explaining why I won't do it. So that's finished. Yeah, and it comes up with a green bar, which means it has been pre-rendered. Very cool. I don't know about the college's RAM, so I don't know if it'll play back in RAM much. Don't know. Now, if I wasn't streaming and recording at my native resolution, I would render this quick. In fact, I can do it like this. Very quick. So, this bar is how much will be pre-rendered. It also dictates if you do a RAM preview, which is basically, you know, previewing what it will look like when it's rendered by clicking this. Let's do it full screen actually. Let's do RAM preview. The size of that selection that you've placed also dictates how much that will RAM preview. If you have a 1 hour long thing, this is 40 seconds, but you want to zoom in. You want to see hundreds of little frames between 2 and 4 seconds. You can do it by this way. You can drag this in to where you want it to be. So you can say, I want to look to everything between 5 and 2 seconds. There you are. 5 and 2 seconds. You can drag this around. You know, and basically, the closer you drag these two together, the closer in you kind of get until you get into the individual frames. So that's what that bar does. Same as you can do this. This one basically centers it around where your current timeline pointer is. Does the same thing. That's cool. So F4 switches between having this little interface, having the blend mode. Basically this interface, you can switch off the effects of something. If it lags out your computer while rendering, switch off the effects. So one was switching off the particle effects, turned back into blue solid. Now, when I made this, and I still do, know exactly what these different layers are. This one is particles, that one's particles. This is my other composition I made. That's a camera linked to a null, which you'll probably learn about later. And then an adjustment layer. Yep, so it's cool. It's a quick hyperdrive animation. Incomplete animation, by the way, if you think, oh, what the hell, why are we looking and wasting our lives with this, you know? Okay, so at college, I've noticed a lack of internet, probably due to some error somewhere, naturally, obviously. Nuke systems and whatnot, it's gonna happen, happens all the time. And you're lagging while doing something in After Effects for whatever reason. Now, whatever's on the screen will be rendered by whatever's in this box here. If I was to say, oh, look at this, you know, very nice, but, you know, I can't render it like this, take me half an hour. You can switch it to quarter quality. Hitting caps lock, I believe, yes, switches automatic rendering. It must be caps lock, I swear it is. Yeah, okay, yeah, as I was saying. Caps lock switches auto refreshing and auto rendering off if you have it switched on. Because this is all pre-rendered by my computer, so this just means it's saved in RAM. If we hit some a space like that, it will say cannot refresh, you've switched it off, caps lock is enabled. As simple as it sounds. To stop it, switch caps lock back on. If you don't want to render a massive part, then after. Recommend that you never touch a key because obviously you want to see what you're working on unless you're just doing stuff in there. So as you can see, I've got many things all saved in here. I haven't bothered coordinating anything. And yeah, you can drag other complications into complications. It's very useful. I could later on you'll use something called pre-comp, and stuff like that. Anyhow. Let me double check, triple check, I haven't missed anything out. Layer coloring, by the way, was actually changing these colors, so you can see which one it was. You've seen the effects in the effects panel. Timeline usage, told you how to use that. Keyframing, probably should understand that now. Oh yeah, I missed one thing out right at the very beginning. I may have, depending on which recording this was. Now, I've got a screen, slightly 16 by 10 aspect ratio, blah blah blah. Frame rate, as Sir said, depends completely on what you're doing it for. I keep it at 30 as general because I'm used to working at 30 or 29.97. Doesn't affect me too much. Shorter, like kind of like something that you'd use on an advertisement web banner would be like 15 to 24. That big range there would be from like a high definition one to a crappy one. I wouldn't recommend for doing things in full HD unless they're like a final render or they're supposed to be that big, because you don't want a banner this big. No one wants to log onto a web page to have a bloody freaking advert the size of their entire screen. It's a bit rubbish, Not only that, it is not equal. When you increase the resolution total, you triple to, super increase your render time. Same with this. Render time is dramatically increased with any of those settings by increasing it. Because if I was to render this now, when I render, the rendering speed is determined on the resolution and what you render it to, and what your compute speed is, your amount of RAM you have, lots of variables. How complex the scene is, how hard it is to process trillions of particles. All these things contribute massively to render time. Resolution and frame rate practically are multipliers. You change the frame rate to 30 to, from 20 to 40, you'll have minimum double the render time. The reason it is minimum of a double render time is because if you, for example, had 2 seconds of that video, took 6 times longer than average to render because of the smoke, well, you've then got twice as much of that to render. It stacks up. It's a force multiplier. You want to keep it, if a client is happy with, your thing at this quality, do it at that quality. Extra quality basically just means you're slower, your computer lags out more. It looks like I'm running all of this, got shadows, got nice optical illusions. I bought a new PC really recently, high spec, very expensive. Used it just for confetti and playing games, to be fairly honest. I will play games. I like After Effects more, however. I'm using a new end computer. I understand not many people have new end computers, not many people have access to this software. I personally am not going to mention anything about software at this point, unless you want to ask me in college. So, this looks all complex and stuff, and it's okay, it's not too hard to do, you could do all of this stuff that I've done in my YouTube videos. Aren't as complex as they seem. They don't take as long as they seem that they would make. In fact, I don't believe anyone has seen it. So, I have covered all the points I was going to plan to, and tons more, so I'm just going to close this. Now, my YouTube channel is the same as my name. Shouldn't really do that because you get some weirdos on the internet every now and again, me included. I'm kind of a freaky dude. Freaky dude? No, that's not. I don't think of me a freaky dude. Crazy dude. Now, I put mini clips of what I'm rendering and what I'm playing with and what I'm doing onto YouTube every now and again. You'll see a new video, like this one. I'm going to play an asteroid belt I rendered and took on my old PC. Quite a while ago I made this asteroid belt with the asteroid belt had about 6 things in the entire scene. And you can make extraordinarily awesome looking things with very simple tools. For a bit, of brain usage, you're thinking, what's going on, how I'm going to place things, and you'll get some really amazing results. This was done on my old computer with really bad computers, one of those like 6-year-old desktops I had, just upgraded recently to this one. And this is the kind of stuff, quality you can make with very, very easy. I'm using plugins most of the time. I use quite a few plugins, Trapcode and Video Copilot. Very, very awesome. I would recommend Video Copilot tutorials for anyone. You know, extremely helpful. Tutorials are free, don't have to pay for tutorials. However, as they will do, and you can't blame them for that, they are a software company after all, very awesome tutorials. For example, I have used this one in my YouTube vid. This exact tutorial, I used this method, copied it, and I recommend doing this. It was a plugin use optical flares, you know, real cheap, makes really cool like lens flares, you know, only $140, which I say is a tad extortionate, but you know, very nice. People do it, companies have to do it, I can understand, and all that jazz. Yeah, so Video Copilot, I just clicked on the tutorial, you know, you can watch it, you can download the project file, you don't even have to use the optical flares, you know? I mean, in this particular project, optical flares, completely additional, adds a little flare end, so it's like, you see optical flares in the video for half a second, right at the very end you'll see it, you know, don't really need it, gives a tiny, more badass like look to it, you know, if you have the money to spend on plugins and whatnot, you can get it, you could probably even, you know, email them and ask them, you know, hey, I'm a student, you know, can I use this? They'll probably may say yes, I don't know. What? Cheap, it's free. Oh, it's not cheap, it's free, you know? And yeah, so it teaches you. I personally say that when I do this, I'm going to give you some tips now on just how I learn After Effects. And as you can see, I know a tad about After Effects. I've never been to another college or any school or anything that's ever taught me software like After Effects. Nothing I've ever done has taught me After Effects. I have taught me After Effects. I've never, you know, I haven't read a book on After Effects before, to be fairly honest. I've never read a book. YouTube is your friend. YouTube is extremely good at, you know, providing you with stuff you need to know. So, oh, bloody hell. That little X is invisible, I swear to Jesus. On my nice, like, coloured Google Chrome. By the way, don't mean that. I'll take any offensive comment I say back. I'm not racist. So, if I go back into my channel. I ended up talking about all that, and then ended up forgetting to show you all that. So, oh, this YouTube vid will be with other YouTube videos. How weird is that? Now, what you're watching on screen is something I did a year and a bit ago. My first ever animation, fully 3D and stuff, which was not, this is in After Effects by the way. First ever animation I did when I was 13, fully rigged up minigun on a wall. How I managed to do that? Go on YouTube, I typed in, as a kid, rigged minigun. That's all I typed in, rigged minigun. With that, I learned how to use I completely learned how to use Cinema 4D. With that thing, I used all the basics, you know, he used all the basics he showed you, he went step by step through YouTube, super easy to use. Now I've got these tutorials out, if you ever want to find out how to do something with software, I'm happy to help with fixing bugs and all that stuff. I've spent the last 2 weeks helping someone on my TeamSpeak to fix his PC out. Did it, I don't care, I'll make a tutorial for anything, I love tutorials. They're awesome, you know. I mean, I'm doing my tutorials for me just as much as you. Now, this is 2D. Yeah? You're like, how the hell is this 2D? And you may say, oh, it's just maybe obviously he's doing it in 2D because, you know, showing it on 2D. The entire thing is rendered in After Effects in 2D by the intelligent use of just little like cameras and messing around, and you'll learn how to do all that kind of stuff real easy. That's using the plugins, whatnot. And how I learned that was, you know, I typed in Element 3D tutorials, and to go, I can type in anything. Let's do After Effects Soundwave tutorial. I mean, I've done solid to particles. You know, you just type anything you want, and you'll get some guy with a very nice tutorial. You may have a guy who does it too quick or whatnot. You know, I take it extra slow. If you don't like listening to me, I'm sorry. I'll put a condensed log maybe every now and again, depending on how this video does. And you know, searching stuff up, YouTube, very easy to use. Just do this. I mean, it's as simple as, to be fairly honest, to score yourself. I mean, this confetti, particularly what I like about it is, I'm fairly certain everyone I spoke to said the same. It's down to earth, you know. I mean, the teachers in it, really nice dudes, and they are down to earth. You know, I can't explain how annoyed I was at my old college, which I used to go to. You know, teachers, you have to do maths and stuff to a mark scheme. Makes no sense to you. Never use in life. This stuff, you know, sir, I want to do this. How do I do this? Bang, you know, this is exactly how it is, and you know, that's the best thing ever. You know, you can't really ask for more. I feel more like I'm having fun than doing work, which is why I'm so enthusiastic about this new course, because I didn't do too well on my old A levels, which is why I'm coming down to the speed tech, because this is exactly what anyone who wants to do art and, you know, visual effects and all that stuff with movies and whatnot. I personally want to do a full 3D movie, Final Fantasy 2001, as I said. Well, yeah, or 2000, I can't remember which one. My favourite, I like Children of Advent, I watched it by the way. I prefer Spirits Within, those got guns, and I'm just nuts about guns. And, you know, that's it really. If you want After Effects at home, CS6, which is the current latest I believe, 64-bit only. I'm afraid if you don't have 64-bit, you can get an older After Effects. I don't think these new ones will run on non-64-bit systems. Neither will most of the plugins, to be fairly honest. But, you know, that Creative Cloud license I saw is pretty cool. We can go and check that out now. Actually, you know, I'm not going to do that. You can search Creative Commons license, whatever, for After Effects and yourself. Thank you, and wait until tomorrow. I'll bring up my next tutorial. Adios.